Thank you to everyone for joining us tonight for In the Kitchen with NOLS Colorful Spices. We've had a great response to this program being offered, and we're very excited to be here tonight, albeit a little nervous. None of us have done a cooking demonstration or show before. This program, like all the great programs the library offers, are not really possible without the support of you, our community members, and all of the Friends of the Library organizations throughout Collin County. Please visit your local branch and the library's website to learn more about all of the great programs and events and services the library has to offer. I would like to begin with a land acknowledgement. The North Olympic Library System acknowledges that the lands on which we live and gather are the appropriated homelands of Indigenous peoples. We want to express our deepest respect to those peoples past and present, including the Hoh Tribe, Jamestown Squalam Tribe, Lower Elwha Qualam Tribe, Makah Indian Tribe, Quileute Tribe, Quinault Indian Nation, Fort Gamble Squalam Tribe, and the Skokomish Tribe for their care of these lands throughout the generations. Let us learn more about the histories, cultures, and traditions of Indigenous peoples. Let us strengthen relationships with sovereign tribal nations to provide an inclusive space fostering innovation and collaboration at the library. So again, a big welcome to everybody. Your presenters tonight are Leslie, Liz, Jen, and myself. And real quick, I also want to introduce Adele. Adele is running our chat and helping let everybody into the room. If you have questions, push those into the chat. And the other thing Adele is going to do right now is push a poll out. We recognize that many of you may be watching with more than just yourself at your home, and we would love to know how many of you are there. So I'll let Adele push that poll out. If you can take a second to answer. And if you do have 4 or more, please drop that in the chat for us. So while you guys are answering that, I would tell a little bit about our presenters tonight. We have Leslie, who works in the Port Angeles branch. If you're in there, you probably see her often. Liz, who works in Sequim. Jen S, we've had many Jennifers over the years, but this is Jen S, who works out in Forks and Colin Bay both, and myself is Cheryl. And we all have a few things in common. Of course, we're all library staff, but most importantly, we all have a passion and interest in cooking. So we were pretty excited to be able to offer you this program. And we wouldn't be able to do this without Adele's help. So thank you very much. And I'll let Adele end that poll here in just a moment. While we're getting our answers trickling in, I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of spices. The aroma of spices has been appreciated, and spices have been used and traded since earliest civilization. Part food, part drug, spices have always been valued for their flavor, as preservatives, for their perfume, and for their aromatic and medicinal powers. Spices include a huge variety of plants and plant parts. This makes them difficult to define sometimes, for they are buds and flowers, fresh and dry. They are seeds, fruits, roots, bark, sap, gum, and leaves. They are used as powders. They're crushed, grated, bruised, and chewed. They are cooked and dried, even steeped and burnt. Spices have always partly been defined by their rarity and value. In many cases, they are defined by the cultures that use them. So cinnamon, for example, was used by the Egyptians to embalm the dead, but it is now valued. I use it almost every day in pastries, pastas, my oatmeal. And then what is a drug or a preservative in one culture can be a flavoring in another. Ever since the first trade routes opened between East and West, spices have had a dramatic influence on our world. It is the quest for spices that drove adventurers from Europe, Arabia, China, and India out across the world searching for trade routes to give their merchant nation an edge over rivals. So the riches of the spice trade helped establish and build intellectual cultures that have shaped modern civilizations and influenced the way in which we think about the world. Many of the world's most valued and widely used spices originated in Asia and the Middle East. So the word spice itself came from the Latin word species, which meant literally any traded commodity, but came to refer to the exotic incense and flavors that originated in the East. Some of the earliest known and most valuable spices, such as cloves, nutmeg, mace, and cinnamon, grew only on a particular group of islands that came to be known as the Spice Islands, which are the Moluccas in Indonesia. So in present day, in spite of the West's demand for spices, most of the world's commercial spices are still supplied from the East, with India as one of the world's biggest spice producers. So tonight, we will be working with spice blends. Each of us will present our blends, a little of the history, and the individual spices traditionally found in each blend. Recipes were adapted from the sources that were listed in your handout, with some slight variations based on our taste and interpretation and experience with the recipes. We will be exploring East African, Vietnamese, and Palestinian, but first we're going to start in Japan with Jen, who's going to be doing our Japanese curry roux and Japanese curry chicken. And I just want to tell everybody, thank you. This was an element of heat in the kitchen we were not expecting today, and we do really appreciate you being here with us in your hot houses too. So I'm going to go ahead and pass on to Jen and let her get started.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer. Welcome to my kitchen. Today, I'm going to be doing the Japanese curry roux and the Japanese curry dish. I'm going to start a few things. I'm going to show you how to cut some stuff, and let's see. Move things around here a little. So I've got a lot of my stuff already prepped. So we've got the onions here, wedges. I'll show you how to do that. I've got my chicken thigh all cut up and ready to go. I've also even got my potatoes peeled and soaked. So that's one of the nice things about this recipe is you can do a lot of things kind of ahead of time and make it all at once. So it makes it a lot easier. Let's see. So let's see if you guys can see. Make sure you guys can see my stuff. So I'm going to get these onions chopped up. They want them chopped up in wedges. So I'm just slicing them.
Carol, can you please mute? Carol Nelson.
So that's my last of my onions.
Hello?
And I'm going to do the carrot here. And I've just learned how to do this cut. Hopefully I'm doing it right. To get started, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn on my burner and start melting my roux, my butter for my roux. That has to melt completely to get it started. So I'm going to melt that real quick before I start the roux because that takes some time. And then I've got my onions. I'm going to put those right into the
Oh, Jennifer, you got muted.
Okay.
There you go. We lost you for a second. So you're starting to saute your onions and your carrots, and you were cutting up your carrots. What were you doing with the carrots? You were doing like a
rambouille. It's where you take the carrot and you cut it on a diagonal, and then after each cut, you turn it a quarter of a turn and cut it again on the diagonal. It's supposed to create more of a more surface area, so the spices and everything can absorb more readily into the carrots.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So I got my carrots and my onions in sauteing. I'm melting my butter, getting ready to add the flour and start the roux.
Okay. So did you already say what a roux was?
No, I haven't. So a roux is just equal parts flour and fat. You can use any fat. Today I'm using butter like the recipe called for. You can also, like at the end of after it's cooked, we'll add our spices. But like a traditional roux is just yeah, it's just flour and fat. And you can add spices. You can use it like most people probably know it as like a French usage for like creating bechamel sauces, and using it to thicken stews and sauces. And then you can add seasoning also.
Okay, I'm going to jump in really quick. I saw somebody was having trouble seeing. I don't know if it's a camera angle piece, but the other thing is to maybe make sure that you are on speaker view and not gallery view, so you only have Jen's picture camera up on the screen, and that may help make it a little bit larger.
Is it too small? I could try to get it closer.
Yeah.
So I've got my butter melted. So I'm going to add my flour to my roux. This is, so I did 3 tablespoons of butter and 4 tablespoons of flour. I'm going to turn it down, and then I'm going to set my timer for 15 minutes. And you pretty much just stir this continually until it gets a light brown. And it's actually a really cool kind of thing. It looks really clumpy right now, but as you stir it, it almost liquefies. So the longer you cook it in the dark, it becomes kind of a lot more liquidy kind of product.
Yeah. While you're talked about that, I wanted to throw in here, most of our recipes tonight, well, all of our recipes tonight are adaptable to pretty much any dietary needs. You can make them vegetarian and vegan. You can vary the protein if you prefer a different protein. And with the roux, you can use a gluten-free flour and a vegan butter if you wanted to create your roux as well. So those are all options with that. So, and Jen, while you're cooking, do you want to share with us what spices you're using?
So tonight we're using the S&B curry powder. Let's see, Oriental curry powder. And then also Garam Masala. I have it all measured out here. So Garam Masala is actually, it means hot or warming spices in Indian. And it's just a mixture of different spices. Everybody kind of has their own blend. So, but most common spices are cinnamon, peppercorn, cardamom, mustard seeds, coriander seeds, cloves, mace, and nutmeg. And then the spices are toasted and ground together. And then curry powder, this is actually something I did not know and I just discovered, and it was pretty interesting, is what we know as curry actually was kind of like Indian curry, was actually invented by 18th century English colonialists that participated in the Indian spice trade. So all the spices in curry powder originate from India, but they brought it together and created what we know of as like curry and curry powder. And
Cheryl, can you tell everyone where you bought the spices at? They're interested in where you can get them at.
Yes. So everything that we are using, I was able to find at different locations around the Olympic Peninsula. I did end up ordering some things online only because I needed things immediately. But there are the co-op in Column Bay, I understand, has spices and is probably willing to try and bring things in for you if you need it. In Sequim, I know about Sunny Farms. I'm not sure beyond that on Sequim, but I also know in Port Angeles, Country Air, and McPhee's Grocery. And so most of what I picked up, because I was in Port Angeles, was at McPhee's and also through Country Air. Burberry and Zatar are regularly at Country Air. I did not check Sunny Farms, but that would be another one that could possibly have it in stock. Oh, Sequim Tea and Spice Store. Thank you. Yeah, if you have any that you know, please share those in the chat. That's great to find out. But you can buy those and support local businesses by purchasing those things locally, especially if you're not needing a large quantity of it. And trying to think if there was anywhere else. And of course, some of these you can find at the grocery store. And SARS, you know, of course, there are grocery stores, but SARS has a few specialty ingredients as well that you might not find in the traditional grocery stores. In fact, the curry powder, I saw somebody commented, I can't see it, Adele, maybe that they commented about finding the curry powder. I used all mine in my house. Yes, they do. Thanks, Sandra. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, Jen, did you have anything else you wanted to share? Are you close to being ready to add your spices?
Actually, no, the spices go in kind of at the last after the roux. So,
Okay.
so we'll cook that for another about 11 minutes, and I'll add the spice in, and it cooks for just a little while. So
Okay.
really, the roux is just pretty much watching it and stirring it, making sure it doesn't burn. But I am about ready to add the chicken to my curry.
The SARS Market in Port Angeles has SB curry powder.
Yep. So does the Forks Swiftway. I saw it the other day. So I'm adding my chicken. We're gonna saute this and brown it until it's no longer pink with the onions and the carrots. And then I'll add my garlic and ginger.
All right.
Let's see.
So is there anything else you want to share with us now, or should we hand off to Leslie?
Yeah, go ahead and hand it off to Leslie, and then I'll kind of maybe
Jump in as you need to.
interrupt her.
Okay,
Yeah, I add my-
great. So next we wanted to bring Leslie in. So if you're cooking along with us, you'll see that we have our recipes behind our names, so you know who's working with what. And Leslie is going to jump in next week with the pho broth. And I'm just going to pass that on to her. So she's got two cameras going. Are you talking on the one you're facing or the one you're cooking? One you're facing?
Yes.
So gallery view may be better, and turning off other. Okay.
And can you hear me okay? When I use my earbuds, everyone sounds like an alien. So I want to make sure I don't sound like an alien
Yeah.
to everyone
You
else.
don't sound like an alien. You were a little
Terrific.
soft, but people can always adjust their volume up if they need to.
All right. So as Cheryl said, I'm cooking the Vietnamese pho. I'm gonna start here. I started broiling the 2 halves of the white onion and the 3-inch ginger sliced in half. I brushed a little bit of oil on all of that before I put it in. I'm gonna pull that out now. I just wanted to char that a little bit. I'll show that there. Very hot. So this is a brand new stove, and it is amazing. It heats up really fast. I'm still getting used to it, but the spices that we'll be putting in tonight in this are the cardamom, star anise, cinnamon, coriander, and cloves. So I have all that right here in my little jar, which, by the way, I don't know if anybody recognizes that. It's from a lemon dessert from Costco. They come in these terrific reusable glass or ceramic little containers. So I'm just going to put that on until I can smell it. It really doesn't take very long. It's going to take about 3 minutes. I'll come over here. So while I'm starting to get that going, I'll tell you a little bit about each one of the spices. So the cardamom is in the ginger family, which I didn't realize. So it has a warm, slightly pungent and highly aromatic flavor. It's popular seasoning in South Asian dishes and in Scandinavian pastries. So it's used in cuisines in Africa and Asia. Also, it looks like as commercial adulterants of true cardamoms. Star anise is the dry fruits of the star anise tree, and it is not related to anise at all. It is indigenous to the southeastern part of China all the way down into Vietnam. And the uses are similar to anise. The essential oil is used for flavoring candies, liqueurs, and perfumes, but it's also used, it has shikimic acid in it, which is used in the synthesis of Tamiflu. Who knew? Cinnamon used to be more valuable than gold. In Egypt, it was used for embalming and religious practices. Medieval Europe was used for religious rites and as a flavoring. And it was also the most profitable spice in the Dutch East India Company trade. Coriander is interesting. It was the records of the first use of it date back to 5000 BCE, when Romans used it to flavor bread. It was also used as a flatulence relieving drug. Cloves they were used as a possible food preservative in the past and as a pharmaceutical panacea. Today we still use it, especially in dentistry. It has eugenol. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's a local anesthetic. So your dentist may suggest that you use it for a toothache. I know mine has done that before. See if I'm starting to smell this a little bit. So now that I can smell that aromatic scent, I'm going to pour in the broth. So, and you can use any kind of broth, chicken broth, beef broth, vegetable broth. Tonight I'm using chicken broth. I tried it with beef broth once before, and it was just a little too rich, too overpowering for my family. My teenager thought it was weird. I'm gonna pour both these in.
And you can use homemade broth for that too, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That would be the best kind.
Yeah.
I did not
Yeah.
do that.
Leslie, did you make any adjustments on the recipe?
Yeah, one of the other things that my teenager thought was really weird and really worked to tone down was it called for 5-star anise to start with, and it was just a little much. I believe it called for more cinnamon too, so we toned it down. I used this chicken broth for him, and it was a big hit, even with the teenager. He said it was more like the pho from downtown, which is his all-time favorite. So once I get all the broth in here, I'm also going to add the onion and the ginger that I just charred under the broiler. Put that over here. Splash myself.
So while
once we
you're
get-
oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, did you, when you have a second, you want to tell us a little bit about the origins of pho, where it comes from?
Yes. All right. Whew. Still ended up splashing it a little bit.
Leslie, have you ever used chicken bone broth?
What's that, Adele?
Have you ever used chicken bone broth?
I have, and that would be outstanding for this too. That would be terrific.
Yeah, it's like if you're making your own broth, that would be super
Yeah.
for these. That elevates everything.
That's right.
And you know
yeah.
exactly what's in it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the origins of pho that I found when I was researching it, that it was born in northern Vietnam during the mid 1880s. It was heavily influenced by Chinese and French cooking. The rice noodle and spices were imported from China, and then the French popularized the eating of red meat. And that's the kind of pho I'm making tonight. Like Cheryl said, you can use any kind of protein you want to. Typically, if you use pork, in Vietnam, they don't actually use thinly sliced pieces of pork like they do to other kinds of protein. That would be pork bone broth and then chunks of pork that have been boiled ahead of time. But let's see, got off track a little bit. So it's believed that pho is derived from, and I do not speak French, so pardon me if I'm sure some of you do, pot au feu, I should have asked my son, which is a French soup. So Vietnamese cooks blended the Chinese, the French, and the native influences to make a dish uniquely theirs. And then what happened, so in the north, the pho is simpler. They use only, they used only ginger, green chilies, and lime. They don't use bean sprouts or herbs. That's when the North and South Vietnam came together, and northern recipes started going south, and the southern Vietnam started adding what we know more today with the bean sprouts, basil, saw herb, along with the green chilies and the lime. So refugees fleeing Vietnam in the spring of 1975, specifically, it says, brought with them their recipes of fun. That's when it started to become popular in the United States. So now you can see restaurants all over the place. So now that we have this on the stove, it's going to be simmering for 30 minutes. So it'll just be cooking away.
I'm going to chime in here real quick.
Oh, perfect.
The curry roux is just finished now. I'm going to add the spices to it.
Yeah, it was nice, Jen. You could really see kind of how it turned a little bit like a light brown.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
did. And you know, if you've noticed before, like I said, it clumped up a lot, you know, when I first added the flour, and it smoothed out really nicely as it cooked. And really at this point, it's pretty much done. You just want to kind of toast those, mix the spices and kind of toast them up a little for just a quick 30 seconds.
And did I hear you say earlier that you could make this up? You can make up the roux ahead of time. You could make up extra.
Yep, I have extra right here that I made the other night.
Nice.
So,
And I even think you can freeze it too,
Yep.
if I remember correctly. Yeah.
I'm
Awesome.
also going to do a quick add of the ginger. I'm just grating it right into my pan to save time. So you can add as much as you'd like or as little. My family likes ginger. I'm also going to do the garlic and use the same grater and just grate it right into the pan and get that going. The chicken is actually pretty much ready to go. And I'll add the broth here, probably just let the aromatics cook up just a little bit longer, and then I'll add the broth and let set to simmer. So add the chicken broth. I'm doing all chicken broth, but you can do chicken broth, you can do half water, you can do all water. If you used a store-bought roux, you'd want to be careful of the sodium. A lot of people say that it's really salty. I've always just made my roux because it's relatively easy. But if you do a store-bought roux, which can save you time, you'll want to be careful of the salt content. And the other thing about this recipe, which is really nice, is that it allows you to, you can change the protein. So you can, or not use protein at all. You can use all vegetables, or you can do beef or pork, or even mushrooms or tofu. So it's really versatile, and to change it to however you like it. So I'll just let this simmer. And when we come back, we'll add the apples and the honey. Awesome.
All right, I am going to do a little flip on my camera because you can see my cook surface better. And I am going to jump in now with the kikwat, which is a red lentil stew. So let's see. I know my camera gets narrow, but hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing over here. So I am preparing this red lentil stew, and we're using a Burberry Spice blend. And this is a very simple vegan dish, actually. And I'm going to start with, you can use a stew pot if you need to, but I found this size pot worked great for me. I'm going to be starting with some of my aromatics, onion and garlic. And I wanted to share one little trick that I do with onion. I decided to use a little white onion and a little red onion. You can do all white, you can do a yellow. My trick with onions is I'll slice them in half, and I keep the root attached in the top. And then hopefully I can get this close enough to see. I might bring in another cutting board. Let's do it right on there. There you go. Now you can see that. So what I do is I put the root end by my left hand. I'm a righty. And I'm going to snip off just the top of my onion there. And I'm going to peel back kind of that first layer and papery skin. You can just peel it right off. But I'm careful not to cut the root off. most of us don't like crying in our kitchens. And this is a trick that I learned to help minimize those really pungent onion odors that we can get. And so my trick with this is I take my knife and I do little slices into the onion. And depending on how big I want my chunks to be will be how narrow the slices are. This is a great way if you want just slices, or you could do half rings as well. And I'm being careful not to cut all the way through to keep from releasing, I can't remember what that's called, what makes that so potent. So I have this onion with these little slices, and now I'm going to go from the other side and just easily dice my onion into pieces that I want, the size that I want.
Cheryl, do
Yes.
you have any ideas for substitutions for people who don't like to eat garlic, onions, or other members of the allium family?
You know, that's a good question. It's something that I'd have to do a little digging on. I use it in so much, and I know there are some people that just can't eat them. And I would actually are there other substitutions that you found that work in place of that? You know, whether it's, trying to think, anybody else have any ideas on aromatic substitutions? They're all like, nope, we don't. I'll think on that one.
Someone said that they could use hing, but their husband ended up in the hospital with that because he was allergic.
Oh, yeah,
And
it's
then-
really tough when you're dealing with allergies.
Yeah, and someone mentioned chives or leeks.
Yes, if you can eat those. Anything that kind of gets that oniony kind of flavor. I'm sure there are some other substitutions out there, and I'll try and answer that when I send out the link. Yeah, Evelyn, it's hard to be able to get those flavors in there without having an allergic reaction. Is not fun. So to get this going, I am going to be heating I have a nonstick pan. I'm going to be heating up my onion and my garlic in this over a medium heat, just starting to warm them up. And I'm not going to cook them till they're completely translucent yet. I'm just going to cook them until they're really aromatic. I usually, because garlic wants to burn really quick, and like Leslie, I have a newer range and I'm still learning temperature control with it. So I'm going to prep my garlic and throw that in with my onions, and we're going to let that cook for about just a couple minutes until it's fragrant. Now it called for minced, but I have to, yes.
When you get a chance, could you tell us what is Burberry Spice?
Yes, I will do that. I'll squish my onion in here and I'll start talking about that. You can use minced garlic. You can pre-purchase it, or you can be like me and be lazy and buy just a really good garlic press and just use that to push my garlic through. And I love this one because I don't even have to peel it. It forces everything through. Take the knife. Cut that off there. And if you're like me, if you can have the garlic, I am a big fan of it. And I tend to almost always double what a recipe calls for when it comes to onion. I mean, not when it comes to garlic, not onion. Onion, I have my limits. I'm sure we've all had those. There's some recipes out there that use so many cloves of garlic that you smell like it for days. All right, so this is warming up, and I'm going to let that get a little bit fragrant. Grab my spoon, do a little stirring, and then while that's going, so this is going to go for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'm going to be stirring in the Burberry Spice. And Burberry is a chili spice blend that's used primarily in Ethiopian and Eritrean cuisine. And these are 2 countries that are located in the Horn of Africa, and really until recently have been embattled in a civil war for Eritrean freedom. So it's, but they both regions use this spice in many things. This, like many spice blends, and all of us have found this as we've been exploring our recipes, that the ingredients and the quantities used can really vary from culture to culture, region to region, and even family to family. Everybody kind of has their own unique twist on their spice blends. I'm starting to hear my onions cook a little bit here. the blend is centered on chili peppers, both spicy and as well as something like paprika, and other spices like cinnamon, coriander, fenugreek, black peppercorns, cardamom pods, allspice berries, onion, paprika, ginger, and nutmeg can all be found in a Burberry spice blend. The spice blend that I'm using for myself tonight was my last minute replacement. But I was pretty excited to see this was a company called Brundo.com that was actually imported directly from Ethiopia. And it supports women in business in Ethiopia. So that was kind of cool. This was this Brundo Spice Company. I do not know where the local one is sourced. They buy it in bulk down through Country Air. So I'm starting to smell my onions and garlic a little bit here. I'm gonna let it go just a second or two more. And then I'm gonna add my Burberry Spice. And because I used a dry pan, the benefit to that is we're going to kind of toast this spice blend onto these aromatics. Now, if you can't do the onion and garlic, I imagine you could toast your Burberry Spice in like a hot pan for a minute or two, and then move on to the other stages with your lentils, or choose another vegetable, maybe carrots. It tastes
Cheryl,
good in here. Yes.
I had a comment that maybe fennel or celery or green pepper might work.
Yeah. So
Thai
any
ba-
vegetables that you really like. I mean, the
Thai
Burberry is.
basil.
Yeah. Let me see. So yeah, there's actually other dishes that Burberry